What's up, Droners? B here from Dronr Tech, brought to you by RemotePilot101.com. And today, I'm going to talk to you guys about a new toy of mine that I am absolutely in love with, kinda. We'll get into that. But it is the DJI Smart Controller. So let's get it in. The DJI Smart Controller is an interesting thing. This came out as an accessory or a plus with the Mavic 2 Pro. And when it first came out, they said that it's also going to be able to be used from other drones. I find it interesting that they actually recently came out with a new matrice that has a version of this that is going with that drone that is not the same. It's a little more complex, a little bit more technology involved. But for me, that kind of says that this platform as a controller is probably going to be around for a while. This drone controller has a 5.5 inch 1000 nit screen on it. What does that mean? In English means you have a big enough screen to do whatever you want in whatever light setting you're in. 1000 nits is enough. Like, the sun can be shining directly right here while I'm using it, and I have literally no problems. It is pretty great. It is pretty great for that. Like, honestly, that is a crystal sky. There's two different versions of the crystal sky. There's a bright one and there's a super bright. This is the same amount of nits as the regular one, which are all the crystal skies I own are the regular ones. The super bright one, I don't know why that's necessary, considering that I can see this in direct sunlight at 1000 nits. It's all you really need. Like I said, 5.5 inch screen. It is a touch screen that I have to give credit. My biggest thing about touchscreens from DJI is that they don't work that well. Specifically, the touchscreens of being these crystal sky, not very good. You want to use a slider to adjust any kind of expo or any kind of thing, the gimbal control, anything like that. It do not work. It just, no. Like, I hate it. It's the most frustrating thing about the crystal sky outside of the software just crashing whenever it feels like it. The biggest problem is I cannot touch and use the screen the way that you can do with, say, an Apple device or some other type of touchscreen device that is just being used all day. It's just not that good. I do not have that problem with this controller. This touchscreen is top notch. It's absolutely amazing. The feel of this controller is good. It feels heavy, which means for me, I'm gonna take care of it because it's probably expensive, which it is. All right, so I'm gonna talk to you guys through a little bit of the features of this controller. First and foremost, as you can see on the top of this, you have some things that are very interesting. Number one, you have a micro SD card slot. This actually streams in OcuSync at 1080. So your proxy files are actually in HD. So you can, assuming that the worst happens, which never should happen, and you lose the drone and you're actually cleared the space and have it copying all those proxies to this card, you can actually have the proxies in HD from your flight on your controller, even if you lose the drone, which is pretty cool. Another thing, me being a pro drone pilot, one of the things that all directors want and DPs want is to be able to see what you're doing. And it's not that much fun to have somebody on your shoulder all the time yelling at you and trying to tell you what to do as a drone pilot. But what is fun is having an HDMI out right on top of this controller that allows you to be able to obviously give HDMI to anybody around you. Here you go, bro. You watch it over there. Got a long enough cord. I'll stay put. We're good to go. And then obviously USB port there. And then the regular standard camera taking picture button here. This is the video. And then we have the two rollies. This one of them is assignable to whatever you want it to be. And the other one is obviously the tilt controls. And on the front of the control, you have your regular joysticks that do come out. And there's even a place to store them on the bottom here, which I'm not going to use because I got a case that allows me to keep these on forever. So I'm going to keep them on forever. This little doohickey here gives you control of the screen if the touch screen isn't really where you want to be doing. You have the return to home button, the power button. That just works just like every other DJI device. And it has vibrate, because why not? Why wouldn't it have vibrate? And then obviously the pause of stopping whatever you're doing, and then the different flight modes. To the left is tripod, in the middle is positioning, which is the standard, and then to the right is sport mode. One other thing is the antenna is on the back here. It actually tells you in the instructions that you typically want to fly with the antenna down like this. I feel like that's really weird because I'm going to break it at some point by putting it down and letting it rest like this, because you should not be putting weight and pressure on these antennas. That's going to be a problem, but they also flip up to the top. So I'm sure a lot of people fly it like that. But Dominic Bendijo, my flying partner, told me that this is the way that it's supposed to go to be able to get the signal everywhere you want it to go. I trust my man, so that's what I'm going to be doing. Of course, there's always an update. So it is now updating, but look how that does that. It updates itself. It connected to the Wi-Fi in my office itself because it's just the smart controller like it said it was. So I just told you guys about all the features that are fun. Let's talk about some of the drawbacks. One of the biggest drawbacks of this is honestly the battery. The battery is not what I wanted it to be. The first time I took this out, I was really excited about it. And you have to realize this battery is not only powering all the telemetry data, not only powering the HDMI, the HD streaming or the OcuSync, not only powering the connection to the controller, it's also powering this 5.5 inch 1000 nit screen. So it's doing a lot. And because it's doing a lot, the battery don't last that long. I probably got maybe 5 or 6 batteries worth of flights out on it. And that's pretty tough. As a professional pilot, like sometimes you gotta fly all day long. Now, obviously, there are ways to charge while you're flying. There's a USB-C on the bottom so you can charge while you're flying. But for me, that is not ideal. Just to be fully honest, like normally, I'd say for most people, most of their flights are not gonna last more than 2 hours, but for professional pilots, and this is for me classified as a professional drone. This drone is being used on major network television shows all over the world, and so this should be something that could be used all day long, and with the additional power, you can. But the reason I say that is because with the regular controller that comes with it, you can probably get like 40 flights off of one charge. You normally never worry about a DJI controller when you charge it. You just fly and it's good to go. This also has 16 gigabytes of internal storage that you can get your proxy files to store internally on here, that you also can use the DJI app to be able to send to your different devices and things like that. I personally don't do that because I don't really want the proxies. That's the whole reason I'm flying the drone, is I want the full res or whatever resolution I'm shooting in. The other thing is that's really interesting is that this is running on an Android system, and it doesn't, even though it's on an Android system, it doesn't, unless you hack it, allow for third-party apps. And as a professional drone pilot, that is a problem. And that's a problem because a lot of the apps that I like to use are for mapping. So like something like Drone Deploy, you know, it doesn't allow you to download that to this. And if you can't do that, then that means I have to have 2 controllers as a professional to be able to say, okay, let me hook my phone up to the original controller and then get this controller separately just to fly for fun. Now, the biggest difference between this and the original controller, obviously besides the screen, is the quickness of how fast you can get in the air. With this thing, you literally just turn on the controller, you flip out the antenna, you turn on the drone, and you're good to go. With the other one, you gotta, fumble around, get your phone hooked up, make sure you get the face recognition or code typed in, open the apps, put it into, do not disturb mode, because you can get telephone. Before iOS 14, I have an iPhone. Before iOS 14, a telephone call would just completely ruin a flight because it would just cover the whole screen and you're in the middle of the flight and like, oh, thank you, thanks mom, this is the moment to call. So I think that's a huge advantage. A huge advantage to this is that you can get up in the air a lot quicker. One other thing that I actually don't like about this controller is that it does not charge very quickly. It comes with a fast charger, so that will charge the battery in about as long as the battery will last, about 2 hours. That's about as long it takes that long to charge it, and that's how long the battery lasts. Normally you have a ratio with that, but not with this. And if you don't have the fast charger and you're just charging with a regular USB-C, it's much longer. Like I've actually never sat and figured out how long that was. I'm just like, just leave it charging overnight. I don't know. But it takes a really, really long time. And the other thing is when it's charging, you can think about, it's like, well, at least I didn't pay all that much, $749. That is how much this controller costs, $749 if you buy it separately. That is an expensive controller. And the reason I say that is because the 2 drones that this controller, these are the only 2 drones that this controller works with. This is a Mavic 2 Pro and this is a Mavic Air 2. Now the Mavic 2 Pro comes in at about $1,600 before you get any extra battery. That is not the Fly More combo. That is none of that. That is the drone, the controller, regular controller, and a single battery. That's all that is. This is an expensive drone when you get all the things with it. So if you're gonna buy one of these, you might as well go all the way and get something like this. Now, the other drone that this actually is able to fly is the Mavic Air 2. You can get the Fly More combo of this drone that shoots in 4K 60 and under $1,000. So if you get this right here and this right here, this pretty much doubles the price of this drone. This controller is worth more than half of the Mavic series that you can buy right now online. So you really gotta think about, like, is this controller really gonna change my life so much that I will buy pretty much another entire new drone just to have this controller? It's a really good question to ask yourself. Now, obviously, I'm a professional pilot. I make money from drones. So for me, I'm like, yes, it's worth it because of the speed that I can get it out, because I just wanna have a new toy to play with, and because I wanna tell you guys about it. But for you, that's a really hard question to answer. Is it really that much of a game changer that you should spend another almost $750 on this? Just depends. Are you making money from it? If not, I'd say maybe not. Maybe it's not worth it because your phone does work just fine. It does all the things. This doesn't do anything your phone doesn't do. It just does it differently. So I'd say take that in as a grain of salt and let me know what you guys think. Do you think this controller is worth it? Do you think it's better than a Crystal Sky? Do you have one for both of them? Do you see a difference in how they fly? Let me know. Droners, thank you so much for checking out this review of the DJI Smart Controller, which is a really cool thing. I love this, and I love doing reviews. And if you want to see more, then you can check them out. Obviously, we got a bunch of videos on our YouTube, on Facebook, Remote Pilot 101 got a bunch of our videos. So check them out, comment, like, subscribe, do all the things. And never, ever, ever forget to stay fly.